Hello, and welcome to the Play It Forward podcast presented by PeacePlayers, the podcast where we lift up voices and stories of people working in their communities and networks to promote peace and equity. I am your host, Chinny and Emmett, and as you can tell, I am excited to be here because today's show is going to be so much fun, unscripted. Woohoo! And we're going to do things a little differently than we have before. So before I go any further, first and foremost, I must always bring in my co-host, Emmett. Tell the people how you feel.
Thank you, Chinny. I feel great. I feel rejuvenated. I feel refreshed.
I see the ducks. I love the ducks. Yes.
I have my Lucky Duck shirt on right now. Hi, listeners. My name is Emmett. I am the incredibly goofy and lanky co-host to Chinny. And Chinny, I'm incredibly excited for our guest today, partially because he's one of the most attractive men I've ever seen.
Well, we both know that. We both.
I can't get enough of him. Tell the people who we're talking to today.
We are. Well, first of all, thank you for handing it off to me. Today's guest is a host of not one, but two podcasts and has recently graduated with a master's in peace transformation, something we need on this show. Mm-hmm. And he's also been involved in some of our M&E. And for all of you at home who don't know what M&E means, it means monitoring and evaluation with PeacePlayers. Mm-hmm. So welcome. And he taught me how to say his name, but I'm sure I'm going to get it all wrong. Tim Rasmussen.
Yes, I am here. I won't even comment on the name. We'll just leave that where it is. But thank you guys so much.
Help me. I'm sorry. Yeah. He actually just made me practice 15 minutes and I just totally bombed it.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. I knew I was gonna get it wrong, but
yeah, it happens to the best of us. It really does.
I'm sorry. Yes, welcome, Tim. How you doing?
I'm doing well. You know, I'm coming from Las Vegas, Nevada right now. Woo-hoo! And we're in the middle of a little monsoon today. And so
so lovely.
really nice. Yeah, it's amazing. No, it's so nice. It's so dry. So I'm feeling great. My vocal cords are a little more supple than your typical desert day. So excited to talk it out.
Yes, supple vocal cords and incredibly chiseled jawline. It's too much at this point.
Yes, indeed. Of course, Emmett. It's all you.
Tim, there's this thing we like to do on the show before the show even really begins. People have been writing in because they can't get enough of it, and it's completely understandable at this point because it's really a gift at what I can do with these icebreakers. And so I'm going to just ask you an icebreaker straight up, and we'll judge the hell out of your answer. Don't worry about it. But when was the last time you did something for the first time?
Ooh. And don't feel bad. I mean, Emmett is the king, like he mentioned before, of the icebreakers. So just take your time.
Okay.
Take your time.
All the time you need.
The last time you did something for the first time.
That's a really interesting question. For the first time, last time I did something for the first time. Maybe I never do new things. Wow, this is okay.
Now let's unpack this. This is free therapy. We're doing.
I haven't. It's been a decade. No, no. It's I would say. See, I was just recently visiting family in Hawaii, and I know I did. I rode in like a, I don't even know what it's called, like a Zodiac raft thing.
Ooh. Oh wow!
All along the north shore of the island of Kauai.
Nice.
And I have never done that. And like, so you're kind of on like this pontoon, and it just sort of just like rips through the waves, and like you're just like holding on for dear life.
Wow,
very cool.
How many people can fit on this Zodiac raft? What is a Zodiac raft?
What is that?
See, I don't know if Zodiac, that's the word that was associated with it on the reservation. I don't know if maybe that's just like the brand or something.
Okay.
But it's basically like a big like pontoon boat. Like, so it's like a boat that has, big blow up sort of sides. I don't know nautical terminology, but don't have my sailor certification, but so it's like a big, like it's fast, like a speedboat, and it just goes in the ocean. And they fit like like a dozen people maybe, and everyone sits along the sides kind of, so it kind of feels like you're almost on like a raft, like it's kind of small.
Okay.
And yeah, it just kind of like rips through the waves. And we went to go look at the Napali coast, which is on the north shore of Kauai. It's like one of the most beautiful places in the world. And so I'm not a big boat person. I get seasick easily. So that was definitely, it definitely felt like it was one of those things where like, yeah, it's the first time I've really kind of gone for it and kind of like went for it with like a boating activity on the ocean. And so, yeah, it was sweet.
Pushing your comfort zone. That's what we
very
like.
nice. Yeah. So Tim, let's just jump right into it. Tell our listeners about who you are and exactly what Pop Violence, one of your podcasts, is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, I'm Tim, and yeah, I have a podcast called Pop Violence, and well, I guess I'll explain a little bit about myself. So, I mean, I've definitely connected with you two through working at PeacePlayers, and so I'm finishing up a master's degree right now, and I actually am finished with my credit hours for working for PeacePlayers at the end of June. So I got like 6 more days.
Yes.
Wow.
Requirements are all checked off. And
early congratulations.
You're a new man.
Yeah, I feel like I'm a master now of something. But yeah, so I got my master's degree in conflict transformation from the Center for Justice and Peace Building. And prior to that, I got a degree in intercultural peace building from Brigham Young University, Hawaii. Nice. And so, yeah, definitely peace building and that sort of field is my big like passion, I would say. Definitely sort of where I've dedicated most of my like all of my studies and like a lot of my time and really sort of what I'm interested in. And Pop Violence has kind of been a growth from that interest and that sort of part of my life. Pop Violence. Well, I guess it's interesting because peace building is an interesting field. Like it's very interdisciplinary, right? And so you don't have maybe quite as much of like the really, really robust and like long pedigree charted like scholarship in the academy coming out of peace building, right? It's not like it's sociology or psychology, some more like broad term things, but it incorporates elements of sociology and psychology and political science and all these. And I actually really enjoy like sort of the exercise of like scholarship and theorizing and exploring ideas and concepts and then finding ways that those can be practically applied to the real world or to different situations that I might find myself in. And I think that there's also an inherent value and something that's very powerful about ideas and talking through ideas and using our imaginations and having new theories, social theories. I think it can be very liberatory. To quote Bell Hooks, right? She talks a lot about how theory is liberation. And I really submit myself to that. I really believe in that. But I also have a really tough time with academia and like that it's just so thick and it's so annoying. And there's also like a ton of like epistemological like problems. And there's a lot of things that really frustrate me. And so I always sort of found myself in an awkward place, especially in grad school, where I felt like I wanted to theorize and I wanted to talk things through. I wanted to, be a little bit of a philosopher and kind of like really explore the concepts that I was learning about, because I feel like there was power in that. And there's power in talking those through and sharing those ideas and trying to push the limits of our ideas. But I felt like I didn't like sort of writing the academic style. I didn't like reading the academic style really very much. I can get through it, but I'm definitely not like super heady in that sense. And I also like really love movies, and I really love talking about movies and thinking about the themes and what power there is there in like pop culture and what it communicates to us. And so I had this idea to sort of like meld the two and to try to find a really sort of like fresh and catchy and accessible way to talk about the things that I've learned about and the things I've been studying for the last 7 years in my my higher education, I guess. And that's what I've learned from peace building, and also the other sort of other disciplines that I found myself in. And so really Pop Violence is all about like review a movie and incorporate that review with critical perspectives about violence, justice, peace, conflict,
right,
and
right.
anything else that's related, and kind of doing it in a casual way, doing it in a way that is thoughtful and intentional, but also in a way that's organic and meaningful and accessible. And so, yeah, it's been like really, really fun. I love doing it. I'm not like necessarily like a really like well-seasoned and expert podcaster by any stretch of the imagination, but I really enjoy it. You know,
Right.
maybe I'm like egotistical and I love like talking
No.
and listening to myself talk, but no, it's been really great. And so right now I'm about to conclude the first season of Pop Violence, the final episode, done with you two. Fantastic review of Invictus. That's episode 12. And we kind of cover, Pop Violence covers, I have movies from, I feel like every genre, old movies, new movies, cartoon movies, sad movies, happy movies. So yeah, it's super, super fun. And so if you're interested in, you know, movies or, you know, justice issues, that's what Pop Violence is.
Very cool.
That was a really long way to answer.
No, that was
perfect.
awesome. That was awesome because it allows us to take that same idea, because that's what we did.
Yeah. Yes.
We're going to take that same idea and do something completely different than what we do on the show, because I mean, Pop Violence is just so cool. And we're going to take your exact concept, except you are on our show. And so the movie we picked, and believe it or not, I've never heard of this movie before, but I am so happy that I got to watch it. And it was awesome. The movie that we picked is The Sound of Metal. So we're going to do the exact same thing. Just
to build off of Chinny, like you said, I think, Tim, academia can be very dry and dense, but I think everybody is like wanting to some form or another have an intellectual conversation with their peers to some degree, because I think it brings people a lot closer. And also I think everybody has a baseline feeling of like wanting to feel smart sometimes, and wanting to talk about things and be like, yeah, I do know something deeper than the surface level meaning, kind of. And I had that same, you know, issue with wanting to be, I was totally curious with academia, but it was so dry that I had a really hard time being able to weave in and out of what was interesting and what was boring. And movies is a perfect medium for that. So for our listeners, we went on, me and Chinny, and we talked about Invictus, and we fell in love with this concept. And like Chinny said, we wanted to do sort of our own movie and put Tim on the hot seat to sort of see his thoughts on this movie, The Sound of Metal, that came out this past year, and see what ties, what connections, what similarities, what differences we could make with PeacePlayers International, specifically, in our core values in that regard.
Absolutely.
So I guess we should just start with Tim. What do you think of the movie?
First of all, thank you for the affirmation on the concept of pop violence. I don't want to leave that hanging completely. I do appreciate that. And yeah, this movie, Sound of Metal, my first thing when I think of this movie is I think of Riz Ahmed and like his performance. That's to me, that was like the standout of the movie.
Main character.
That's what really I jumped to. And then the second thing I jumped to, and it's really interesting because I feel like this is, you know, I'm always doing this, constantly sort of like exploring movies and trying to dig in for the themes. And I think there are underlying themes in this film for sure. But it's interesting because it almost is just a strictly informative film at the same time, where there's not necessarily something deeper. You're just learning about what it might be like to lose your hearing, and what that looks like, and what it sounds like, right? This won the Academy Award for sound, and I think that's with good reason. I mean, like when I watched the film, I was first watching it on my laptop, and I decided like halfway through, I was like, I gotta switch, and I switched to headphones, a bigger set of headphones that I have. And it really, like, the experience of watching this film it's so sensory and so like visceral. I mean, I don't think it is going to teach someone like me to know what a deaf person or someone with hearing loss feels like, but I felt like I got like an up close glimpse that maybe I've never really experienced before. And so that's really what stands out to me the most about this film.
I think it does a great job. So Ruben is the Riz Ahmed character, and it does a really good job of building sentiment without sentimentality, I feel like, because you don't feel a sense of pity all the time. You feel more so this starkly contrasted compassion and empathy, and then anger and annoyance, because what the film does a really good job with is constantly shifting the audience's perspective from Ruben's perspective to the outside world's perspective.
Exactly.
The scene I can think of that resonates with me is the scene where he initially goes into the doctor's office to test his hearing. And we start initially with Ruben in this sort of closed off room, literally separated by a mirror, so to speak. And you can't make out any of the words that the doctor's saying. There's this clear annoyance that is building that you can feel. And then it suddenly drastically shifts to the doctor's perspective reading it. And that anger and annoyance instantly goes to just empathy and compassion, where it's just like a heartbreaking contrast. Having said that, I do think there are some underlying themes that are a little bit deeper than just watching a person internally go through this like horrible conflict that is out of his control, kind of.
No, absolutely.
Were there scenes, Chinny and Tim, that I'll ask you this, were there 3 scenes in particular that you felt impacted you or stay distinct into your mind after watching it?
I'll wait for Chinny.
I don't think there are, for me, there weren't any specific, but I kind of saw it different from you guys, just in the way that it was, for me, a love story, right? Of these 2 people trying to find a place where they fit in. And music was this place where they could fit in. This music was this place where they shared their love and they were accepted, right? And so that's what I saw. And so the anxiety builds up when you see that this world is being starts to deteriorate because of sound, the power of not being able to connect, on that same love rhythm. I'll say it's deep for me. That rhythm, those vibrations are being broken down because we've got one person who can hear the vibration and the other person who's losing touch because his sound is leaving. And so that was a level of their love. And you can see that start. Okay, yes, there was a scene. The scene where they drive and he's losing his hearing and she's so concerned, and she calls his sponsor and they find this place, and they get there and then they leave because he understands that she can't stay with him, right? And they're in that park, I think it's like parking lot, and she calls like a taxi or a cab or Uber in our time. And she leaves. And I don't know why I could feel his pain, but it was like we go from sound detaching a part of the love, and then true detachment, true abandonment, and she's gone, and he's like pounding his chest, and he's like, oh my God. And for me, I felt like he was saying, I don't have my hearing and I don't have the best part of my, like, hearing is one thing, but the fact that I'm losing this love of my life is
that totally adheres to Tim's point, is that all the anguish that goes on in the film is not built up in a soap opera-y kind of way. And that's totally a testament to Riz's ability to convey like a total sort of stoic nature on the surface, but then clear heartbreak, tragedy, and like endless amounts of pain that you can, as the audience member, you can look at this person and be like, wow, through just this acting, I can tell how brutally painful this is all going for him. And that whole idea, the whole narrative of their relationship is a whole subplot where it's like they clearly are each other's healthy, we'll put in air quotes, vices for each other. Like they need each other. There's clearly this idea that they're only alive because of each other. and so that causes this whole new distinction towards the relationship when they're gone. Tim, what do you got?
Yeah, no, that's interesting. You know, it makes me think what you were saying about how it's not like soap opera-y. I think one of the things I really liked about this film that came to mind, and really especially towards the end, was that this is not one of those films that like holds your hand through the experience, but you're still experiencing it, right? And like your typical film, like I feel like most films that are like blockbusters like hold your hand to a degree. You know, they really guide you into like, this is what's going on, this is how you should feel right now, this is what's happening. And one of the biggest testaments to that for me is that for most of the film, and I'm still a little bit unsure, like the jury's still out a little bit, I didn't like the character Joe. So the director of the program, he really got on my nerves at the beginning. At the beginning, I was like, stay away from this guy, Ruben. This guy is not your friend. Like I felt like he felt a little bit culty. He felt a little bit.
Yes, that's it.
I was not. Yeah, exactly right. I was like, I'm not feeling this guy. But then by that last scene where they have that conversation, I still didn't fully agree with Joe's maybe his philosophy or his methods necessarily. Although I'm not an expert in the field that his character is an expert in, but I felt like I was still like I don't know about this guy. But I also was like, I also felt like, wow, like it worked to an extent. And I felt like a lot more empathy, a lot more connected with that character.
What's the it you mean? What's the it worked? What do you mean by the it worked?
His program, right? His approach with Ruben, and Ruben was so resistant to it for so much of it, and that it goes back to the way the film is presented, is you get like a typical or maybe like a less profound way to do that. I was like, oh, are we gonna get some mid 2000s alternative song, and like there's all these shots of like Ruben walking around the compound that he lives at and learning how to do sign language and everything. Which is sort of what you might typically expect in like a lot of films. They have like that middle montage, the growth period for the character in his arc is oftentimes like, just sort of dubbed over with like a music or something. And then you end up, this character, like for instance, Joe's character, and a lot of movies have this, or stories have this, where there's like sort of an old sage character steps in, becomes the teacher for the sort of renegade or at a crossroads main character. And you at first you're like, and then by the end of it you're like, he was right after all. This film does that, but it does it in a way where, I mean, like it completely, like, I don't know, it just did it in a different way. I guess it kind of took me by surprise along that sort of very typical arc that we see in a lot of films. And it was, to me, that was like really masterful. And I think it speaks a little bit to like some of the deeper themes maybe that were going on.
Especially,
I don't know, it's hard.
I think one of the, this just might be my perspective. One of the themes that was interesting is the theme that love can be isolating. For me, that's what I got from it. Love is isolating. Like you can, like we have the relationship between Ruben and Lou is isolating. We have the relationship between Joe and Ruben now, and this community. It takes, I don't know, it kind of expels everyone who's not like us out of the picture. It's like this, I don't know. I that's what I got from it. Like,
well, there's clearly this two things. The one is that the first time I saw it twice. The first time I saw it, Tim, it was clearly indicated where it was like, a typical movie in this fashion that would be a blockbuster would be, he goes to the deaf community, the teacher Joe teaches him, you have the montage clips, he meets the teacher, the deaf school teacher, they fall in love, he ends up with her, and he stays in the deaf community, and Lou's happy in Paris, kind of thing. That's what I was anticipating, honestly, when I met her as a character. And I really appreciated that he sort of still was imperfect as a character and did this sort of self-destructive thing where he felt in this weird purgatory place, like Chinny, you were saying, where it's like, you're not these he's not part of this community anymore, and he doesn't want to be part of this community either. And so he's saying, you know what, I'll just do what I'm going to do on my own, kind of thing. And that was so heartbreaking about it is when, and this goes to the sound design, when he finally gets the implants and you see how horrible it is for a person who knows what regular hearing is to experience that. It's just like the final nail in the coffin, where it's like, now not only do you not have this one group or this other group, you're in this specific middle area that is very isolating, from way more isolating than the beginning or 1/3 or 2/3 of the way in.
Very well said. Very well said. Yeah. It's like this idea, when you chase the wrong thing, you get nothing but heartache and pain. And that's what he got. I
totally see that. But and at the same time though, it was interesting to me because I felt like the last shots, like the last couple of shots of the film, when he finally takes them off. Yeah. I did feel like there was the lighting, his acting, even just like the nature of the shots, they felt optimistic to me. Yeah. It didn't feel like it was like, well, this is the end of the story. Ruben's life is going to suck forever. I didn't get that impression, you know? I felt like there was something like I think through all the heartache and even through the isolation and sort of even going into that purgatory middle place that you just said, Emmett, I think that there is a journey of him finding himself. Yes. And I do think it's revealed in the film that him and Lou did have sort of a codependent relationship, right? That as they're finally getting intimate again, she's reintroduced to all these bad habits. She starts scratching herself again. Yeah. And you know, I think that was really, really like fascinating for like an arc that, I mean, you had the feeling the whole film that like, they're not going to end up together. Like this is going to end badly. But I loved the last like 2 scenes of him with Lou. The one was like in the party. Yep. And that one, when the people were trying to talk to him and there was the crowds of people, the sound in that part, like it literally induced anxiety in me. Like I felt anxious as I was watching the scene.
I felt anxious too.
There's so much chatter and there's like the sound is fluctuating and they're asking him, how are you? And you can kind of hear it, but you kind of can't.
Oh my God.
Like, this is scary.
Goodness. Yes. Very.
And it was really good to me. And like, I love when a film can induce like those kinds of emotions. Yeah. One of the ones that I think of, I don't know if you guys ever saw Uncut Gems, but Uncut Gems was one where I felt like the sound actually induced anxiety because there was chatter and there was weird fluctuations in what dialogue you could hear and what you couldn't. Yeah. And this sort of took that to like the nth degree. And like you had this intense, and then the next scene when they're in bed together at sort of that final moment and he says to her, and it doesn't even need to be said that he's going to be leaving. He just says, it's okay. Like you saved my life. It's okay. And she knows and he knows that they can't be together. Right. Yeah. It's just not going to work.
And that just pays a testament to the saying, acting and not saying what needs to be said kind of thing. Yeah. Where it's just like a perfect example. Right. I want to save the endings and sort of those final scenes for post lightning round, because those tie into sort of those reoccurring themes that happen throughout the film. But Chinny, yes, how about you lead the lightning round?
Get out of town. Are you serious?
I know.
Let me tell you, Emmett is the king of lightning round. And since I am going to be leading, Emmett, why don't you let Tim know what the rules are for the lightning round? I am excited and ready.
I feel unprepared.
Very, you should feel unprepared. You should. The lightning round is a series of questions that we have where you have upwards of 3 seconds to answer. And don't worry, there's only a lot, and we will only judge you heavily with each one of your answers. But it's a good exhale moment before getting into sort of the meat, if you will, of the subjects at hand that we're talking about. So Chinny's going to lead you through sort of the series of questions.
Are you ready?
Ready as I'll ever be.
All right. I might throw some wingers in there, and you might have to like, ooh.
All right.
Okay, here we go with the 3 to 4 seconds. Okay, what was the last thing that made you smile?
This podcast.
Oh, not everybody always so nice.
Is that what everybody says?
No. Nobody says that. Nobody says that.
No, they say that we're phenomenal and great, but I mean, we don't hear it all the time, you know. Favorite time of day?
The morning.
Ooh,
early morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
Favorite meal of the day?
Dinner.
Nice. Sweet or salty?
Salty.
Scuba diving or skydiving?
Scuba diving.
Favorite sport?
Surfing.
Oh, that's a good one. Favorite place in the world to travel? Yes.
Hawaii.
Hawaii. You know what? Let me go with last movie you watched. Just kidding. All right. Name a person who inspires you.
Oh gosh.
Don't be pressured to say your wife.
Why is this like the hardest one? Emmett. Thank you. Chinny.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean,
I feel like there is somebody who inspires me out there in the world. I'm just gonna stay in the realm of movies.
Okay.
For now.
Okay.
Good.
Let's see. One of my favorite filmmakers right now is Denis Villeneuve. So he's done some really, really great sci-fi films, and yeah, they explore some cool concepts. And so I'll just go with that.
All right.
I find his films inspirational.
There you go.
Shouts out, Dennis.
That's fine. Way to dig out of that pile. Good. All right. Last thing that made you laugh.
That was tough. That was really, really tough.
Last thing that made you laugh. You could say this if you like.
Well, people have heard me laugh on the podcast, but before the podcast this morning, I was laughing with my mom. We were laughing a little bit about the weather here in Las Vegas because it's raining today and it never rains. So,
very cool. Last book you read?
Okay, you should never ask that to someone who's just finished grad school, I feel like. Oh gosh. What is the last book I read? Actually, I had a recent. I'm a nerd. I had a recent leisure read, and it's like a young adult book. It's called The Jedi Path. It's a Star Wars book.
Ooh, okay. All right, moving on. Save it or spend it?
Save it.
Ooh, dine in, dine out.
Dine out.
Country life or city life? I already know this one. Maybe I don't. Maybe I don't.
I don't even know this one. Probably city life, I guess.
Ooh.
I don't know. Country life is pretty good. I don't know. I've lived country life in Hawaii, and that I lived there for like 5 years in like a very, very small town. And then I've lived country life in the States as well, or on the mainland as well. And I'm definitely for it in Hawaii, and I'm definitely probably not for it on the mainland. So.
Right.
Okay, that's a good answer.
We'll take it.
We'll accept that.
Name one thing you want to leave the world with after you're gone.
Is this saying like I take it with me like through death, or it's one thing I leave for the rest of the world? Your legacy.
What you leave for the rest
my
of the
legacy.
world.
My legacy. Yeah, I would love to not necessarily inspire people, but I definitely want to leave a mark where I am pushing some envelopes, and I would love to be part of be a change agent in some way. And I like the idea of I guess what you might call like popular education, but I guess you could also call it like just like being part of like raising people's awareness and just raising people's consciousness, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Very nice. And so our final question, one takeaway that you want our listeners to remember from today.
From today, I hope that everyone who's listening today just knows that Emmett and Chinny are the best.
Yes, yes, we are. Thank you so much.
And that's all the time we have. So,
right.
I do hope that the listeners walk away loving you too. But I also hope that and this is something I say in every episode of my podcast, I just hope that people listen to their intuition, and also like when they're consuming pop culture, because we are in the last, like the population of humans in the last like century, we take in more culture and more data than like the entire rest of like human history combined. Almost like we are constantly taking in so much culture, and so many ideas are being like thrown at us. And I hope that people, just listeners, will feel inspired perhaps to take a moment to criticize and to interrogate that like constant flow of culture.
Right.
Question everything.
Yeah. Make your own definitions. I like that. I like that a lot.
All right, you made it to the gauntlet.
That was hard. That was actually really hard. I need to find some inspiration.
It was harder for me. I never do the lightning round. It was very rewarding. I see why you like this, Emmett. Very rewarding. Yeah. So let's press on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, let's. So going back to Tim, sort of the and Chinny, the final moments of the movie, I think sort of represent Ruben's character arc in a thematic way. Can you take me through your opinions and thoughts on sort of those final moments? We'll start again, Tim, with the saying goodbye to Lou officially, sort of, and sort of this change in Ruben's behavior, it seems, up until it fades to black. And take the listeners through what that is that I'm referring to.
Yeah. Well, I think for me, there's a couple different like themes that we can pull from that, a couple different things that impact us. And one of them is definitely, I think, just the little piece of wisdom. And this is something I feel is very, very relevant, especially like from like the background I feel like I come from. I come from like a background and a religious sort of subculture that is very like predisposed to sort of put the stamp of finality on relationships prematurely, you might say. And sort of, and I think that that's something that's interesting. We have this arc of this shared arc between Lou and Ruben. And I think that it's very sad and heart-wrenching, that moment when they're in bed together, where she's clearly uncomfortable. She doesn't want to, be romantic in that moment. She seems nervous, but she also, you can tell that she loves him.
Yeah.
And then she gets that itch, right? And he knows that she hasn't had that itch since he's been gone. He sees that she has the itch, and sort of the next thing he says is, "It's okay. It's okay." This like this release. He doesn't say, "I have to leave your life." He just says, "It's okay," because he already knows. He knows he has to leave. He knows that they can no longer be together. And I just think that there's a little bit of wisdom in that, and just that like, and this is like kind of rudimentary, but it's like sometimes when we find ourselves more, not every relationship is going to continue to work, and some relationships keep you in the place of maybe where you were previously.
Right. Right.
And it kind of that, and I think that brings us to the next scene really well, because then we know from that scene that Lou, her life, her person, in multiple ways, it seems that she's in a better place than she was before Ruben left her life, right? And that's what Ruben realizes, and that's why he says, "I have to step away from you because you are better off without me."
Right.
And that's like such a hard pill to swallow. But I think that what we get then in the next scene, right? He's walking through the streets. There's just all this chaotic noise that's coming through his implants, and he's clearly like a little bit lost.
Yeah.
Doesn't really know what to do, and he eventually he takes them off.
Right.
And it goes silent.
Right.
And you just, I mean, those last, like, I don't even know how many minutes, but those last several shots in silence, they juxtapose really well with a lot of shots from earlier in the film, where we have a lot of shots where we get landscape shots looking at, the one that comes to mind most is like, there's one where it shows the wind in the grass, and it's very loud, and you can hear this, and it sounds really beautiful. And then you get a shot of the clouds where there's like the rumbling of the thunder. And then you get a shot of the trees. You can hear all the cicadas and the bugs and the birds. And these last shots are really juxtaposed with those where you don't hear anything. It's completely silent, but you see the light as it bounces off, the curve of the bell tower. Instead of hearing the bell, you see the bell tower. You see the smiles on the kids' faces. You see, the light as it, cuts through the trees. And all you do is see it, and you see that is also beautiful. Right?
Exactly. Sorry, I got so excited. Yes, exactly.
Right. It's just
Very
as beautiful.
Good.
And I think one of the places that brings us to, apart from it just bringing us to just appreciating the beauty of the world, right? From different perspectives. It also brings us to the place where I think we can realize that Ruben also became a better person and is in a better place without Lou. Right. He also was going to be better off if they didn't continue that relationship.
Absolutely.
And he had grown as a person. And so I think that those are sort of some of the underlying things. And those aren't incredibly deep. These aren't like profound philosophical, shake the foundations of reality sort of themes. But, it is the way that we, as humans, the way that we experience reality, right? And we get to, that's just, I think the beauty of this film is it's all about going through someone's journey as the way that they experience reality changes profoundly. And that's beautiful. I'll stop. Sorry.
No. And that's sorry, go ahead.
No, I
want to say, and that's bringing it back to PeacePlayers, right? That seeing people as people, that inside outside transformation, that culture of collaboration, this idea that you can see the humanity in others, or in this case, you can still see the beauty once you take away the sound, right? Almost, you might be able to see the beauty even more because there is no sound. You can be more mindful of what you're taking in visually. And so I think of it as the metamorphosis from the caterpillar to the butterfly, right? The caterpillar is with his friends, he gets a cocoon and his friends are still like walking around, and, time goes by and he turns into a caterpillar and he can no longer play with his, he turns into a butterfly. He can no longer play with his caterpillar friends, but he's better off because now his view is way different than it ever was. From
Chinny, you could say that Ruben literally went through an inside transformation.
Transformation
in the movie.
Absolutely.
That idea, the quote that sticks out to me. Well, for one, I completely agree that there's this. The director Darius does a really good job of isolating a sense for the audience to experience it in a completely new and unique way.
Right.
You see the blender, all the mundane noises that you totally take for granted. He does a really good job of isolating them and taking them out once with Ruben as well. Like the blending of the green smoothie, the shower, like you said, the wind, the thunder, all of these things. Flips it on his head by having the implants and then taking it out completely, and just having the silence totally changes your perceptions of the world, just like it is for Ruben in real time. But there's this idea that he's constantly going through this internal battle of trying to find inner peace. That's what I was going, the second time watching it, I was like, this is clearly a sense of belonging story, a sense of he needs to find that inner peace. Because in the opening shot where he's drumming, you can clearly tell that there's still a lot of anger and unresolved issues there. And it goes out throughout with the vices of Lou as a relationship, with this fixation of wanting to get the implants. It's like he's clearly running away from something. And that's why Joe's like, can you just sit still for a little bit? And if you have to get up, just write. And the first time he sits, he immediately slams his fist on the donut. He physically just can't do it.
Right.
And there's a quote that Joe in the movie says, which resonated with me, which was the world is a cruel place, but that stillness, those moments of stillness, that place will never abandon you, sort of. Right. And so Ruben's for me, the fear that he had was that the things that were keeping him grounded, not even things. There were two things. There were two things keeping him grounded. It was one, music, and the other was Lou. And once the deaf goes away, music is gone. So now it's strictly just Lou. And now Lou leaves. Now he has nothing. He feels like everything has abandoned him, sort of. And Joe is, I think, the only thing that he does really well is articulate sort of to a recently found deaf person, you know, the world is going to keep going and it's going to feel crazy and it's going to feel overwhelming. The dinner party is going to be a constant feeling, that anxiety, that overwhelmed feeling. And so you have to be aware and able to sit on that bench and be able to appreciate those moments of stillness. Otherwise, you're going to freak out sort of in this way. And I think that's why it's, you can have two outlooks on it. You can have the pessimistic outlook where it's like, he's not getting better. He's going to be homeless and he's going to be deaf and he's miserable in this middle place. Or you can have the more optimistic route, which is what I did as well, Tim, which was he found that sense of stillness. He found that sense of inner peace, and he's gonna go back to the deaf community and be welcomed with open arms. Maybe, who knows? You know?
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Go ahead, Chinny. Sorry.
I was gonna say I keep hearing like such strong words, and I kind of want to tie it back to PeacePlayers, right?
Yeah.
And how what we've said at its very core is embodies what we want our PeacePlayers to walk away with and understand, right? This shifting of perspective, or even just accepting a perspective outside of your own. And like we saw Ruben clawing at trying to hold on to something that wasn't serving him anymore, to eventually getting to a place where he starts to be more mindful and understands that in finding himself more, all he needs to do is let go of the things that he thinks are keeping him grounded, but they're really just weighing him down, right? Let go of all these vices and these things that I've deemed as what define me, and allow my experiences to truly define who I am, and really be in the moment of those things, to be mindful. So bringing it back to PeacePlayers, just understanding that inside outside transformation, one of our core values, one of our 3 core values, seeing the humanity in others. But before you do that, you've got to go inside yourself to look and see, you know, where you went wrong and how your lens might be slightly cloudy, and really clear that up. And that's what Ruben was doing. He was clearing up his lens to be able to see the world in its true and most amazing form. And that's what we teach at PeacePlayers, inside outside transformation.
And you get that, sorry, Tim, if I keep interrupting, but you get that concrete example of seeing people as people, where Ruben's forced to join a community that he doesn't want to be a part of, which is the deaf community. And you see, one could say, Tim, a montage clip of him learning sign language, actually starting out being completely sort of disassociated from the group. He's at the dinner table, they're all having fun. He doesn't know any sign language. He starts to learn the language. He starts to incorporate more time with the kids. He's on the slide with the one kid, and that's like the first moment where it's like clear that there's a connection being made, and he's like actually enjoying himself. And then it bubbles up to the point where they're in the field and he's laughing and having an amazing time with these kids, kind of, which is totally adhering to the seeing people as people idea.
Yeah, definitely. It makes me think of, I think of PeacePlayers and like that inside outside transformation, like idea. And I think it does relate really closely to this film, because like I was just saying, like, I feel like the film is at its core, it's about somebody's experience of reality, or their conceptualization of reality changing, right? Absolutely. Profoundly shifting and reality becoming something different. And I think of some of like the thinkers that maybe that I learned about as I was getting my degree in peace building. I think of like sort of the constructivist, or even those types of thinkers that are really thinking about how do people construct reality? How is reality something that's constructed? And that can be something that's kind of a pessimistic view, but it can also be something that gives us a lot of power, right? It can give us a lot of ability to change and to find ways to transform that the world and our conflicts and whatever. And I think of like I think of Hegel. He's one that comes to mind. And it talks about this really simple thought, but it's the idea that nothing exists except because of all the things that it isn't. And that's a really like casual way to say that, but it's basically like nothing exists except because of the fact that there's a bunch of stuff that is not that thing, right? And that sort of waters down to this idea.
I'm
Hegel
repeating it.
Well, Hegel gives this idea that there's you have something, and he calls it like a thesis, and then for every thesis that exists, there is something that is not what that is, and he calls that the antithesis.
Yeah. Right.
And so there's the thesis and the antithesis, right?
Right.
And that through that is sort of where progress and transformation happens.
Gotcha.
We go from a thesis to an antithesis to a synthesis, right? That either in relationship to or because of the antithesis, the thesis transforms into the synthesis, and that sort of becomes the new thesis. And according to him, human history envelops from there.
Right.
And it makes me think of the inside out transformation, because it kind of takes us down to the very bare bones of what really is going on in an inside outside transformation. And that is, what is reality? How am I constructing the world around me? What does the world look like to me? And I think that what is happening for Ruben, at least, is you have this really profound and really accentuated experience of that, because he's losing one of his senses. And so his ability to perceive reality is literally changing. And so he goes from this reality to this other reality. And then by the end of it, we have him at like a synthesis place where he kind of can hear, he kind of can't, he is seeing the world differently. He's a different person. And yeah, I think that it relates a lot to PeacePlayers and that inside outside transformation, just because of that, people. And I think that always that antithesis, there's always resistance there. I guess I shouldn't say always, but almost always there's going to be resistance there in the sense that, we go from having a certain reality that we know. And I think it's human nature to cling to the way that we experience reality.
Comfort. It's comfortable.
Yeah, there's that comfort there. And I think that I'm sure that you guys have experienced that, being a little bit more hands-on in PeacePlayers than I have been, in seeing that, we don't want to necessarily let go. Even if it's a difficult reality, we don't want to let go of it, right? We want to hold on to, even if it's feelings of othering towards, in one of the conflict places that PeacePlayers does work, maybe we feel more comfortable. We want to hold on to that construction of reality where the people on the other side of whatever are not people, and they are,
these objects.
These objects, right? And then there's resistance to that idea that the reality is shifting, right? But as we persist, we can get to that place where we can see things maybe the way Ruben sees them at the end of the film.
And the resistance isn't bad, because it's the resistance, it comes as resistance, but really it transforms into accountability. And that's why people are like, so when you said the word resistance, not a bad word. It's not a bad word, because it's the start of what transforms into holding yourself accountable for other perspectives, other than your own, and really being able to see the humanity in others. And I keep going back to that because that's what our inside outside transformation is. But I can dig it. I'm with you on that. You sound like I was gonna say. Oh, so we have this thing called the drop the mic moment, and that was it.
Should I just, okay, we should just end there. I know you guys did that. You've had some guests do that. All right, podcast over. Just kidding.
No, that was it. That's very well put.
I'm curious for both of you also, because I had I'm not going to say for my personal look, but what was your mood after the film was over? What did you feel? Where did you feel like we left? Like, what was your stance and emotional fortitude with Ruben as a character? How did you feel after the movie? Did you feel good? Did you feel melancholy? Did you feel heartbroken? Did you feel lethargic? Like, what was the emotions that came to you after it was over?
This is a good question. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm gonna be completely transparent. I was like, oh my God, because I was like, oh my God, am I losing? I don't know. I started freaking out. I was like, oh my God, I can't hear in this ear more than I can in this ear. And this is my natural reaction. Don't know why. I was like up at 2 a.m. and I was like, oh my goodness, I can't, you know, I don't know why that was, because I was so like, I was in the movie. I was the movie. And for everyone who's at home, who's listening, the sound effects were real. Like you would get, Tim mentioned this earlier, the perspective of Ruben, who was losing his hearing, and then you would get the perspective of people hearing. And Emmett said it earlier, and I totally forgot about the scene when they were eating dinner. So there's a group of people who are deaf and they're eating dinner, and from their perspective, it's completely silent. You hear nothing. And then we hear it from a hearing person's perspective, and it is loud. Boom,
they're
boom,
banging,
boom,
they're
boom.
banging the table. Yeah.
So yeah, I think my first instinct was like, oh my God, I'm so appreciative of having all my senses. Yeah. But let me also check to make sure they're all here. So that was I know that's really silly, but
no, that's so that I had that same feeling. You go like,
yeah.
You're also like, you instantly have the selfish feeling of being like, I don't know how I could handle myself if I was in his position.
Kudos to the deaf community, 100%, because
it's crazy.
It's pretty dope.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that I had maybe not necessarily questioning my hearing, but I did feel like I kind of felt like outside my body when I was done watching it, you know, like I kind of felt like I was in like a weird state of mind where I was not fully like harmonized, like between my brain and my body.
And spirit was out.
And yeah, it was weird, you know. It was because it gets you, you know, it gets you feel like you said, Chinny, you feel like you're in the film kind of, because the sounds are so like visceral. But then you're also sort of noticing things in a different way but when the film's over. And I think that's really cool. Like, I think that's that's an accomplishment for a filmmaker to like have, you know, at least 3 people walk away at the end of the film and feel like they were experiencing the world differently immediately when the film was done. I think that's really cool.
No, that's I'm that lack of harmony between your brain and like your rest of your body is a very good way of describing sort of what happens when we totally like isolate one sense. It's like kind of like if you do a ride or one of those like images on the internet that like says like stare at this one point and then you look up and it like makes everything move sort of in a psychedelic hallucinogenic way, like that residual feeling that those bring of like feeling like, wait, am I sleepwalking? Is this sort of like a sleep paralysis type thing, but for our hearing kind of. Right. And yeah, it is bringing it all the way back to what you originally said. It does a good job of not feeling too sentimental. And I think if it was super sentimental, you wouldn't get the feeling of, like Chinny said, being engulfed in the actual movie, feeling like, oh, this isn't a movie. I'm just witnessing and experiencing firsthand what this person is just going through. Like, it was very hard for me to be like, Ruben is not a real person who's experiencing this.
Yes. Yeah. I was Ruben. I could feel, I know. Yeah, that's real. Good one. Wow, I just want you to know that Emmett is very, very happy right now, and he has pleased and giddy.
Like, I'm like vibrating with excitement.
And this is like the best idea, I feel like, for a podcast, and pop violence is definitely phenomenal. And thank you for allowing us to take the idea, if not just for a day, and just be in the moment. This was
for sure.
This is the most organic and just.
So where, Tim, do you have any plugs where people can find Pop Violence, where they can follow it, where they can follow you, what you're doing, if they want to figure out more about your life?
There's nothing, and me personally, there's nothing out there to follow me. But no, Pop Violence is available on like pretty much all podcast places where there are podcasts, Apple, Spotify, whatever. And yeah, it's one word, Pop Violence. Purple Skull is sort of my that's my signifier, that's my brand. So I have a purple skull. Anywhere you see a purple skull, that's me. And yeah, you can also follow me on Instagram at pop.violence. That's where I do sort of all of my listener engagement and all of like the news and everything. Right now, I don't have a website or anything. I just do everything through Instagram. Right. And so I post at least every 2 days, usually every day.
Oh,
so
very nice.
Yeah. That's where you can hear all the latest. And yeah, so that there's, when this podcast is airing, there should be 12 episodes available for people to listen to of Pop Violence. So you've heard this one. There's 12 more just like this with other guests, unfortunately, but there's 12 other episodes like this. You can go and listen to. So that'll be my last plug.
Listeners.
Oh wait, should I talk about Chad Ford? That was another connection. Back to PeacePlayers. So Chad Ford, someone who's on the board for PeacePlayers, was one of the guests on one of the Pop Violence episodes previously, and he came on and talked about some of his own sort of peace building theory that is articulated through his recent book called Dangerous Love. Yeah. And we talk about the Star Wars saga. And that was a fascinating and just incredibly fun podcast. And so if you are interested in Star Wars, you can go find that at Pop Violence. And PeacePlayers board member Chad Ford is going to be featured there.
Yeah, he's phenomenal.
Listeners, I cannot stress enough. Please go to Pop Violence and take a listen. Tim is a genius, and he's incredible.
And that's it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening and joining us on this amazing journey. If you like what you heard, we encourage you to like and subscribe. We've got many more wonderful conversations and stories coming up in the next couple of weeks. Share with a friend, and I had to clear my throat there. Most importantly, Emmett, how did that make you feel?
Oh my God. You know me, Chinny. I could talk about movies for 6.5 hours and still be able to run a marathon afterwards.
Yes,
Tim is a genius. Thank you. And you can learn more about us at peaceplayers.org, and also follow us at PeacePlayers International at Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube as well. I'm pretty sure we have a MySpace and a Tumblr, but we definitely don't. I'm going to keep using that joke also at the end.
No. And I'm going to keep laughing. Yes.
I'm not going to go lay down. I'm going to go for a run because I'm rejuvenated from that conversation.
He was, and I said this earlier, but I'm really happy that you got to be in your element as well. You were phenomenal.
Thank you. And I'm not going to go on a run. I'm going to lay down.